Police in Baltimore, Maryland respond to an emergency call near Morgan State University.
We received a phone call from our dispatcher notifying that a shooting had taken place at Harford Road and Moravia Road. We responded out to the location. When we got out there were people everywhere.
The crowd is gathered around a gray Honda that has crashed into a liquor store. Onlookers say the vehicle careened off the road after it was shot at by an unidentified gunman.
The driver's side was literally riddled with bullets. There were a number of bullets struck into the car, into the roof, out the other side. Speaking with the primary officer, they gave me a breakdown about what took place. An adult male had been shot. The adult male was subsequently transported to Johns Hopkins Hospital.
The victim is 23-year-old rapper Tyrese Watson, better known to his fans by his stage name.
Someone came up to me and said that this is Scooter. At that time, I had no idea who Scooter was.
Tyrese Trayvon Watson was born on April 13th, 1993. He grew up near Pennsylvania Avenue in West Baltimore, a neighborhood with strong ties to Black music history.
Years ago, I'm talking like the 60s, 70s, you had the biggest names come to do concerts on Pennsylvania Avenue. Frank Sinatra, Commodores, this is where everything took place. Because of the influx of drugs that have infiltrated the community, there has been a fall off.
Young Tyrese's single mother did her best to provide for the family. But growing up poor in a rough part of town was never easy. To escape his surroundings, Tyrese turned to rap music, adopting the stage name Lil Scooter at an early age.
His mother attested to the fact that he would have his headphones on constantly, and he would constantly writing his lyrics in his notebooks and really living in that space.
He cared a lot about his mother. He put that in his music as well. He wanted the world to know what he's been through, the struggles, him and his mother had, and that his ultimate goal was to help her get in a better situation.
Scooter's rise to stardom would hit a few snags along the way. As a teenager, he got mixed up in some illegal activities and briefly lost sight of the big picture. In 2011, at age 17, he was arrested for drug possession. But this turned out to be a blessing in disguise.
Scooter was placed into a program called the Violence Prevention Initiative, or VPI. That helped guide him away from the continued course. He really took hold of more of the rap music than being in the street game.
I think he took off pretty quickly as it pertains to Baltimore. We're a hard town. Like, they always say you can make it here. No, seriously, if you can make it in Baltimore, you have really done it.
The community truly embraced Lil Scooter because they felt he was real. He didn't rap about what he heard someone else talk about. He didn't rap about what he thought would resonate with the people in his community. He rapped about what he lived.
In 2014, Scooter's song Bird Flu became the unofficial anthem of Baltimore's West Side.
While it has various meanings, our sports teams, the Orioles and the Ravens, are both birds. So there plays on that as well. So it galvanizes people around it from that aspect.
Everybody here, everybody in the state of Maryland believed in this kid. You had athletes dancing to it. You had Diddy shouting them out. You had Meek Mill shouting them out. It was like something the city never seen before.
His success inspired him to help create the West Side Entertainment Group, YBS.
YBS stands for Young Ball is Shining. They were very supportive of Scooter, very supportive of his career. They did everything they needed to do to make him that superstar.
Scooter's personal life was thriving as well. In 2016, he started dating fellow musician Taylor Johnson, also known as Sneaky T.
We were kind of always like popular in the city. Both had a name, we had mutual friends, so it kind of just happened. Scooter is a very caring person, demanding. he was a little demanding, but he was a man. Like, he would get stuff done.
He was really laid back and chill. But when he hit the stage and that light hit him, he was a totally different animal. You could tell that he was in his element. Let's say that.
Scooter and Sneaky T even performed together once.
We had a booking together, and it was so fun. Just imagine you and your significant other are in the same field. Y'all both getting paid to do what y'all like to do, getting big money to do what you like to do. Y'all both coming home with a bag. Y'all both had, like, it was just, that was a great night.
As his reputation grew, Scooter began using his platform to spread a message of nonviolence.
He was one of the few people that you can actually see making it to the next level. I think Scooter was going to perpetuate that positive attitude and give everybody hope.
You know, he took his craft very seriously, spent a lot of time in the studio. And now he's going to peace rallies, trying to get back to the community, trying to tell kids that are coming behind him, you don't have to go that route.
On June 25th, 2016, the day of the shooting, he was embraced by community leaders as a role model and symbol of Baltimore's future.
Stokey Canaday, he organized a peace rally held at Morgan State University, a very prominent HBCU right here in Baltimore, Maryland. And Lil Scooter was in attendance. He and his girlfriend, he was actually a featured artist, a featured guest at this particular rally.
I felt like a part of my life, I made a lot of poor decisions, and I did things that I'm not or wasn't proud of at the time in my life, and I wanted to give people hope that change was possible. So I wanted to have a basketball game to use these influencers like Scooter to give young fans who wanted to see them do something other than what they normally do. Scooter wasn't a basketball player, but you can tell he was having fun.
For everyone involved, it was a major success. But less than an hour after the rally ended, tragedy struck.
I just remember, being happy that we had another successful event. And then I remember getting a call, leaving the gym, that Scooter got shot.
As Scooter is rushed to the hospital, Baltimore police begin questioning potential witnesses. One of them immediately stands out.
My attention was really put toward a woman that was crying, very distraught on the side of the road. Come to find out that was Taylor Johnson, the girlfriend of Lil Scooter.
Taylor says she was in the passenger seat when the vehicle crashed, but is too traumatized to remember exactly what happened.
When the police officer got there, I remember him saying, "What's your name? What's your address? What's your date of birth?" And I was like, "I don't know. I literally did not know. I couldn't tell him nothing." He was like, "Well, can you call somebody? Do you know a number?" And I remember grabbing my phone and dialing. I was calling everybody that was close to me, like, "Come right here."
As friends and family race to the scene, the detective receives devastating news.
He is rushed to the hospital, but despite doctors' greatest effort,
Baltimore police are investigating the death of rapper Lil Scooter, shot by an unknown gunman on his way home from a peace rally.
We had about 11 shell casings that were located in the intersection, were right at the light. The caliber of gun we discovered was a .40 caliber handgun. There were no shell casings in the vehicle, which leads us to understand that the shooters were clearly on the outside of the vehicle. All the shots were coming in from the driver's side into the vehicle.
his girlfriend, who was sitting right next to him in the passenger seat, left the scene physically unscathed.
I believe in God, and there was nothing but God watching over her during that time. There were bullet holes literally right over top of her head, where her head would have been. Had she had moved any other direction, she would have been killed also.
It seems clear Scooter was targeted. The question is why?
It's a major intersection. There are surveillance cameras in that intersection. And I remember them getting me the surveillance video rather quickly.
We were able to get video footage of Scooter and Sneaky T walking out of Morgan State University, going toward their car. Shortly thereafter, the Nissan Quest following them as they were traveling down Cold Spring Lane, which turns into Moravia Road. We're able to see the Nissan Quest do an illegal U-turn in the middle of the street and break fast going after them, going in that direction.
But the individual who got out to do the shooting couldn't make out that person very well from it.
Just after the shooting had taken place, coming into the parking lot, backing out, and then fleeing in the opposite direction.
Still recovering from shock, Scooter's girlfriend, Sneaky T, sits down with police.
It was very hot that day. Well, I remember me getting dressed at home. I had a show that day too. He didn't have a show, I had a show. So we was like, we're gonna go to the rally and then chill later until your show. We get to the game and me and my friend go sit in the bleachers. We were just chilling, playing on our phone, taking pictures. They, playing basketball. Nothing weird. It was just a normal day.
When the game ended, Taylor says she and Scooter got back in the car to drive home, but they weren't familiar with the area.
I'm from South and West, and he from West, so we really didn't have a real good sense of direction of where we were going. We used the GPS to get to the game. So we were leaving the game. I feel like I was typing in an address in my GPS or something. I remember hearing something loud, like a firework. And we both kind of like ducked, like when you hear something loud, like, what was that?
She ducked down, tried to get as small as she could in the vehicle. Thank God she did.
And I heard another one. They kept coming, like, five, 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 five. The first shot, it was like a pop, like a pause with it or something. And then the shots kept going, so I just grabbed the door and just jumped out the car. As I got out the car, I was walking backwards. And I could see the shooter had like something white over his face. But you could tell that he never looked at me when I got out the car. Like never turned or like pointed the gun to me. Like he was determined, like he wanted Scooter. Like he knew what he wanted. And I remember walking like backwards, like crying, like walking backwards, but he was still shooting. Like he didn't stop, like he was still shooting. And then he ran. I knew Scooter was dead because the car started drifting. He couldn't hit the brake. I remember the car crashing and me just like falling to the ground crying. I remember people outside saying like, that's Sneaky T, that's Sneaky T. And I was just screaming, screaming, screaming. And then the police and the ambulance came. I just sat there and just looked at the car and was screaming until the police came. And I remember them dragging him out the car and he had like blood coming out his mouth. And he had blood coming out his mouth and I was just crying. I was like, is he gonna live? Is he gonna live? Asking the officers, like, is he gonna live? Is he gonna live? And they said, we just gonna get him to the hospital. I heard him get to the hospital. We gonna see. I just knew it wasn't good.
Unfortunately, Sneaky T has no idea who the shooter was or why he went after Scooter. But the news quickly spreads, and the community, often at odds with police, bands together to help find Scooter's killer.
The streets are talking, and we need those streets to talk to us.
That's the thing about Baltimore. The people are resilient and always willing to give you another chance. And they rallied around this particular murder because he was relatable, and they saw him as somebody who had survived the odds and was doing the right thing. I think it was just this, we can't believe it. And who would do this?
Right away, the Baltimore police receive a record-breaking number of tips.
Scooter's murder woke the city up.
I had seen more than 300 plus murders in that year, basically. And all the murders that had taken place, I had never seen the abundance of tips that we had in this particular case.
The tips that were coming in ranged from who possibly had set him up to listen to the lyrics of this person rapping.
They wanted to provide things like links to different social media, links to other rappers who had song lyrics that could target Lil Scooter.
A lot of times in the hip hop game, and we've seen this from years. I mean, I grew up with East Coast, West Coast, Biggie, Tupac. You know, lyrics can sometimes get a little rough. And if one group thinks they're being played by another group, sometimes it doesn't stick with just being in the studio. Sometimes things.
In the days following the shooting of Baltimore rapper Lil Scooter, investigators sift through hundreds of tips from the community. Most are dead ends. But a confidential informant working for police provides them with a name.
The informant reached out to their handlers and immediately told them exactly who was responsible for the shooting. Cortez Mitchell.
Cortez Mitchell is a 22-year-old resident of Glen Burnie, Maryland, a suburb of Baltimore.
Our informant was able to tell us right away that not only did Cortez Mitchell shoot and kill Scooter, he told him where the gun was. It was from there that a search warrant was executed, and the gun was located exactly where Cortez Mitchell had advised the informant where it was going to be.
Detectives only have the informant's word that the gun belonged to Mitchell and was the one used to kill Scooter.
Just because an informant says something, we don't go and lock someone up right away. We still have to do an investigation.
You want to send that gun to the lab. You want to match up ballistics. You want to get DNA or fingerprints. Unfortunately, some of these things take time, even if you get it rushed. This is a city now that is on pace for 1,000 shootings and murders every year, 1,000. So that's how much evidence is backlogged. That's how much evidence is being processed on a regular basis.
From this point in time, we want to look into Cortez Mitchell, get all of his background, learn about Cortez Mitchell.
While investigators wait for lab results, they talk to everyone they can find with information about Mitchell and any possible motive he might have had for killing Scooter. Word has it that Mitchell belongs to a rap crew known as the Young Go-Getters.
Cortez Mitchell is affiliated with YGG, Young Go-Getters, the opposite of YBS, Young Baller Shining, which is where Scooter was a part of. Once we saw that, we say, okay, this makes sense.
YBS is from West Baltimore, and YGG is from East Baltimore. The two don't get along.
Scooter's entertainment group, Young Ballers Shining, or YBS, had an ongoing beef with Young Go-Getters, aka YGG.
You either live over east or you live over west. That's a Baltimore thing. Don't ask me why, it just is what it is. Very small, tight-knit communities that stick together.
You won't be able to tell if you're from out of town, but if you're from Baltimore, you can tell if someone's from East Baltimore or if they're from West Baltimore.
West Baltimore is known for young, fly, and flashy. West Baltimore is like where the fly guys at, where the fly girls at, getting money guys, getting money girls.
I don't want to portray it as a gang situation. I refuse to do that. That's not that. But there's a lot of stuff that can go along with this. History of East, West, redlining in the black community is something that's very serious.
Scooter rep YBS till literally the day he died. He loved his guys and he loved his crew.
He was loyal to a cause that he thought would change his life and the guys around him. And they was hopeful that Scooter could take the YBS brand to that level.
Some wonder if the beef between the crews is what got Scooter killed.
And I don't really think it was about him. I think it was about who he was associated with. It was a plan to get rid of the team, you know, and what better way to hurt you is take the top dog.
Early in their investigation, Baltimore police have identified 22-year-old Cortez Mitchell as a potential suspect in the murder of local rap star Lor Scooter. Since the two men belonged to rival crews, detectives believe it's possible Scooter was killed to send a message.
A lot of times, associates might do something that might lead to the person being killed. We were looking for other shootings that may have taken place and see if there was any connections with Scooter's case. That's when we found out about the Devontae Robinson case.
Police reports show that 24-year-old Devontae Robinson was shot in West Baltimore at approximately 1 p.m. on June 25th, only a few hours before Scooter was killed.
Now, according to witnesses of that shooting, Robinson was walking on the street when another man opened fire from a black SUV. Despite being shot 3 times, Robinson survived the shooting.
What we come to find out is that Devontae was loosely associated with the rap group YGG, Young Go-Getters.
That's Cortez Mitchell's crew. Although Robinson's shooter wasn't identified, detectives wonder if someone in the YBS crew might have orchestrated the attack. If one of Scooter's associates shot Robinson, it might explain why Scooter was killed.
Who is his homeboy? That's one of the things that we look for. Like, who's your main man? Who's your ride or die that's gonna be with you everywhere you go?
The person who best fits that description is 23-year-old Fred Catchings, a West Baltimore native and Scooter's childhood friend.
Catchings happens to be a close friend of Scooter and the YBS crew.
Had Catchings shot Devontae Robinson? Police learned Catchings was at Scooter's side in the hours before Scooter was killed.
What we come to find out is that Scooter was with Fred Catchings at the basketball game.
Catchings ended up leaving the game prior to Sneaky T and Scooter, and given the violence that followed, it's possible he was trying to avoid being ambushed by Robinson's crew. Instead, he might have gotten his friend killed. As investigators begin the search for Fred Catchings, countless mourners from the West Side gather to lay Scooter to rest.
Everybody was there. I mean, he had a line all the way down the street. It was beautiful. He looked like he was there asleep, but it was just hurtful, you know, to see a young brother laying there like that. It was just unbelievable this kid was gone.
There was hope that the remaining members of YBS would choose to follow Scooter's path of nonviolence and end this cycle of payback for good.
There was this energy in that space where it was like these individuals were now carrying the torch. That Scooter had done as much as he could while on Earth in his short 23 years of living, and now it was incumbent upon them to take up that mantle. You know, don't let this derail you. Don't let this take you off your mark. Stay in the trenches and let's finish the work that Scooter was doing his best to do in his beloved city.
5 days later, the community is dealt another blow.
Scooter's manager, Trayvon Lee, is gunned down. And he dies from 2 gunshot wounds to the chest, just steps away from his home. From the outside looking in, it is abundantly clear that someone is working very hard to pick off individuals from Scooter's camp.
Earlier that morning, around 10:30 a.m., 3 other young men were ambushed by another unidentified shooter. It is unclear whether the shootings are related, but the violence in Baltimore is clearly escalating.
Police here in Baltimore are used to acts of retaliation. But what they learned with this case is that this was payback on a whole nother level.
The trail of violence begins to go back and forth. It was a bloody tennis match going back and forth throughout the city.
This city is definitely an eye for an eye. If you do something to somebody, your family member, somebody is gonna get you back.
Desperate to stop the violence, Baltimore police hold a press conference on July 7th.
You can't allow street justice to take place because it's only leaving family without their loved one.
A lot of people sit here and think, oh, you cut me, I cut you. You shoot me, I shoot you. But where do it end? How many people you gonna hurt? How many people gotta suffer for it to end?
And investigators are doing everything they can to put a stop to it. So far, they've been unable to locate the man suspected of instigating the cycle of violence with an earlier shooting, Scooter's friend, Fred Catchings. But on July 8th, police catch a break when he's pulled over during a traffic stop.
During that car stop, a gun is recovered. Catchings is placed under arrest, and that gun is linked to the shooting of Devontae Robinson, which took place just hours before and shooting and murder of Scooter. Fred was brought into our homicide office. I stepped in on the interview at that time, going back and forth. Fred began to open up about what took place with Devontae Robinson.
When confronted with the ballistics evidence and surveillance video, Catchings admits to shooting Robinson. He says he believed that Robinson was hired to shoot him, so he wanted to shoot him first.
This was the catalyst to everything taking place afterwards. Fred Catchings just shoots a member of YGG, Devontae Robinson. YGG comes back to shoot at Scooter.
Allegedly, the man sent to kill Scooter was Robinson's friend, YGG member Cortez Mitchell.
Fred Catchings says that while Devontae Robinson was in the hospital recovering from the initial shooting, his friend Cortez Mitchell hit the street looking for revenge. Retaliation needed to be felt. When they found out Scooter was at a public event that day, the Peace Rally, they wanted to hit him where they knew it would hurt.
What we come to find out is that the shooting of Scooter was in retaliation for what Fred had done to Devontae earlier that day. A payback, 100%.
And I was like, damn, that's kind of messed up. It hurt my feelings even more knowing Scooter wasn't the person or involved in whatever happened earlier that day. I had no idea about nothing, and I could have died with something I had nothing to do with.
Investigators charged Catchings with murder and turned their focus to Mitchell. When the crime lab completes its tests on the gun recovered after Scoota's shooting, they confirm it was the murder weapon. Unfortunately, there's no way to prove Mitchell pulled the trigger.
Okay, we've heard that Cortez Mitchell did this. We've matched the ballistics. That still doesn't say Cortez Mitchell did it.
No prints recovered from the gun, but fingerprints are very fragile. They aren't always there. Building a case, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove.
And I think this is a part of a frustration for the public. It's like they say, y'all know who did it. But investigators get one bite at the apple because of double jeopardy. Just because you know who did it, you have to be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt when you take it into court. And if you don't have it, you can't bring those charges.
As they work to develop more evidence, detectives fear the violence will continue.
Street justice doesn't operate on probable cause or beyond a reasonable doubt.
The streets don't need the same amount of evidence to bring someone to trial. You said he did it, I know he did it, we're gonna take care of it ourselves.
On October 10th, 2016, those fears are realized.
Before investigators can make a move to arrest Mitchell, gunfire erupts in West Baltimore once again. Cortez Mitchell and Devontae Robertson were together in a vehicle stopped at a red light when an unknown gunman opened fire, killing Mitchell and wounding Robinson once again.
Cortez Mitchell was shot and killed. Literally the exact same way that Scooter was shot and killed. In a vehicle, at a stop. The saying is, if you're going to seek revenge, make sure you dig 2 graves. This is a prime example.
As soon as this happens, you go right back to, this is payback, this is retaliation, this has got to be linked to this event.
Since Cortez Mitchell was the only suspect for the murder of Scooter, his death ends the investigation, although plenty of questions remain.
Bringing this case to a close was bittersweet. It was, yes, we wanted to get the person involved in the murder of Scooter. No, we didn't want anyone else to die in the process.
Does that give the family the closure that they need? I don't know, only they can answer that. Because sometimes you want to see them in court, and it's whether they say, I'm guilty because I did it, or the judge or jury says you're guilty because the evidence says so.
For the community, it's not enough. They want someone to be held accountable, not only for Scooter, but to send the message that continued violence won't be tolerated.
With Scooter's suspected killer now murdered, prosecutors push forward to try Fred Catchings for the initial shooting that alleged.
More than a year has passed since the string of shootings that claimed the lives of multiple men, including Baltimore rapper Lil Scooter. And the city is still reeling.
Scooter had so much potential. He had kids like literally passing out, like to get next to him. My son was probably about 3 or 4 at the time, and he loved Scooter. Losing him, it's like everybody lost someone that day.
It's a tragedy worsened by the fact that the man who may have set it all in motion was one of Scooter's oldest friends, Fred Catchings.
I didn't know Fred as well as I knew Scooter. From what they say, he was in the streets and he was about his business, but I didn't see that in Scooter. Scooter stood for what he stood for, and if he had an issue, I'm pretty sure he would do whatever it is he had to do, but not just outright just trying to hurt somebody.
Regardless of what you end up doing, you have to watch your circle. And even when you might be making it, it might be some people that still are trapped in that world and lost in that world, and they can bring you down if they're not ready to get out.
Fred Catchings decides to make a deal with prosecutors.
Catchings initially pleads not guilty to charges of attempted murder, but with the evidence and his own admission, he ultimately pleads guilty to 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder and the use of a handgun.
In August 2017, Fred Catchings is sentenced to 32 years in prison. But the cycle of violence doesn't end. In 2019, his intended victim, Devontae Robinson, is targeted by someone else.
Devontae Robinson was later shot and killed, literally in the exact same way that Cortez Mitchell was shot and killed and Scooter was shot and killed. And we're still looking for the persons responsible for that.
The murders of Devontae Robinson, Cortez Mitchell, and Scooter's manager, Trayvon Lee, remain unsolved.
It's not the closure anyone was looking for, but those who remember Lord Scooter will always find inspiration in his life and his music.
There are certain preludes in life that leads to success, whether it be a better education, a good job. Scooter found a future in his talent as a rapper.
People need to hear his story because, he came from a struggle and survived some things and was trying to do the right thing and show young people the right thing.
I think he's seen what the other side looked like. I think he felt it, he could smell it. And, for him not to be able to complete that task, was unfortunate. Not only for the complexity of that situation, but the entire culture of Baltimore, young men and women.
One thing I will say to up-and-coming artists, the children that look up to artists like Scooter, you don't have to go the street route. There's nothing glorious about starving and selling drugs and killing one another. That's not glorious. What's glorious is being victorious and coming out of it and giving back to your community and getting us all out of that situation. People don't realize when you take a life, you don't just take that life. You take so many other people around in that love them.
When you're that close to a person, you're not thinking about money and fame and all that. Hurt is hurt. You can't skip past that. You can lose money, you can get it back. You cannot get back that person that you lost.
I had stopped doing music for a while after that happened. I feel like I'm kind of letting him down though by just pushing my talent aside, not really focusing on music how I should. I kind of got discouraged a little bit. He was my motivation. I miss him.
Richmond, California is a small city nestled into the picturesque hills above San Francisco Bay. But this tiny town's beauty is too often eclipsed by rampant drugs, murders, and violent gang turf wars. And in 2004, the carefully planned execution of a beloved high school football star by a killer, a motive, and a method that all defy belief will expose a shocking betrayal and will bring a close-knit family and the entire city of Richmond to their knees. Richmond is located just north of Oakland and overlooks the wharfs and shipyards of the San Francisco Bay. It began as an industrial town, and after World War II, the population boomed when African Americans from southern states came there looking for opportunity.
The shipyards, those were where the jobs was at, and the people was coming to where the money was, And not only that, they was able to create jobs too. They was bringing their skills from being maids and stuff like that, coming out here to these rich people communities and offering maid service, And our people did that, brought that out here, They was very good cooks. They were very good homemakers. You know, they was coming out here doing the same thing they was doing out there, but they were getting paid out here.
We was able to acquire land and then built the city ground up. So it's like to come from a place and really start new and have an opportunity, it takes a certain type of like vision and spirit. They call our city pride and purpose, you feel me? So it's like to come from one region to another and almost like build up this new Black, like robust community is like, it attests to like the type of people, you know what I mean? Because they came over here together and they built something together, and it's their children who then was supposed to reap the benefits of that. So you feel me? The type of people out here is like independent minded, hustler spirit. Hustling not meaning like illegal. Hustling just mean like having an idea and knowing how to go gather the means to achieve that outcome, and just being able to say like, man, I can get it out the mud for real, because we really had to build this city up from almost nothing.
We had Black-owned gas stations. We had Black-owned restaurants, the top ones, you know, that everybody go to. It was just beautiful.
But by the 50s, the war efforts had ended and the jobs dried up. Richmond's population plummeted by over 20,000 as residents left in search of work. Those who stayed behind struggled to make ends meet. The crack epidemic of the 1980s and 90s only compounded the devastation.
Now, BC, before crack, we talking about good families, a lot of grandmothers still in the house, a lot of families with auntie, uncle, big mama, on down to the babies crawling in there, everybody responsible for everybody's 100% love. Kind of like how you see in the Latino family now. You know, just the whole family in the house. Now you're seeing people that was astounding citizens, walking away from jobs, walking away from success.
The men went to jail, the mothers were on drugs, and so the kids were on their own.
Now them babies is inside the house raising themselves.
Many young men turned to the drug trade to make a living, with disastrous and deadly results.
At that time, there was a lot of open-air drug dealing, street sales, and narcotics. So with selling drugs in the street, you're going to get a lot of violence.
Warring gangs now control the streets and divided Richmond into 3 sections known as the Iron Triangle.
Within that triangle, you have Central, South, North Richmond. It became a difficult place to really kind of navigate through, because you don't know who's on what side, who's still cool with who.
By the early 2000s, gang-related violence in Richmond had risen to 7 times the national average, and Richmond became known as one of the deadliest cities in America.
Even though Oakland's a so much bigger city, Richmond was just as dangerous as Oakland. So, but it's funny when you're coming from where I'm from, it's all the same. So I guess when you're from it, you see it a lot, you become kind of numb to it, you know, in a sense, you know, so that's the way I looked at it.
Some families turn to sports to try and keep their kids out of gangs and off the streets.
Sports was the getaway. You know, on the sports field, all we had to worry about is being kids and playing.
Sports was important because it gave you structure, it gave you a sense of purpose, a possibility of another life outside of where you are, and possibly of getting out of your situation.
But in 2004, the execution of a beloved sports hero would serve as a grim reminder that no one is immune from violence if the violence is hell-bent on finding you. August 12, 2004, shortly after 10:30 p.m., Richmond police respond to shots fired in a residential neighborhood. When officers arrive at the scene, they find a young man dead in the street.
And as soon as I drove up, I knew this wasn't the normal homicide. There was 150, 200 people out. There was every cop car in the city was there. Crime tape all over the place.
The reason for the large crowd quickly becomes clear. The victim is 18-year-old football star Terrence Kelly.
At that time, I did not know Terrence Kelly was Terrence Kelly. I didn't know he was this all-star athlete from De La Salle. I didn't know he was getting ready to go to University of Oregon. The car that he was driving was up against another car, like it rear-ended it. The driver's door was open and Terrence was at least halfway out, if not all the way out.
His feet were still in the car, but his head and his upper torso of his body was outside of the car.
You can just feel the uneasiness and the uncertainty of what's about to happen in life from everyone because of who had just got killed.
Terrence Kelly was born on April 23, 1986 in Oakland, California. His father, Landron Kelly, was only a teenager at the time.
Terrence's father was scared to tell his mother, our grandmother, that he had a child. But when Grandma Bev did find out she had a grandson, it was come on home.
Everybody fell in love with Terrence. Terrence had a big smile, He was a joy. He really was a joy. Even at like 2 years old, I remember him just running around and have a lot of energy. He used to follow us to a lot of places we made it a point to bring him with us just so he can follow under us, so.
As Terrence grew up, his father focused that energy into sports.
His dad really, really loved football, and that's where Terrence's love for football came from.
Me and my brother and I, we coached the Richmond Steelers, our midget team. We was the best in California. We beat everybody. And Terrence come from that.
He was good. He gave 100%. And the one thing I heard about him, beside the athletic ability, was what a great kid he was.
By the time he was ready for high school, it was clear Terrence was destined to be a star. But his family worried about him staying in Richmond.
Guns are everywhere, drugs everywhere. Schools are unsafe. They decided that we don't want him to go to school here in Richmond. We want to send him to De La Salle.
De La Salle is a private school located in Concord. It was on the other side of the tracks, as we like to say it.
De La Salle was noted for more than its academics, however.
Terrence Kelly rumbles to a 65-yard touchdown.
It also had one of the most successful high school football programs in the country.
Absolutely incredible program. Incredible coach. Incredible ethic. They never lost. And the one thing about De La Salle, they're big on character. They're big on brotherhood. And so, that's what the family wanted him to be part of.
Terrence's family made constant sacrifices to keep him in private school, so he paid them back by working as hard as he could.
I still haven't found where he got his determination and work ethic from. If you think about it, 16, 17, 18, all kids are really thinking about is hanging out, having fun. And he's literally the one that's putting in the extra hours after gym. He's getting up early to be there 30 minutes early. You tell him he has to do 12 this set, he's the one that's gonna do 14. If he can find any way to squeeze any extra work in, he's gonna do it.
By his senior year, Terrence had become the best running back the school had ever seen.
He was an amazing player to watch. He had something special about him. The way he moved like a cat to be so big.
Go, baby! Oh, hell no!
He had great feet. He had beautiful hips. He can turn and run. Everything you wanted out of a linebacker, he had. And I knew we had something special in that. And Terrence, his whole makeup, because he was very calm. He never got too worked up, never too fired up. He was even keel, and he approached the game a little different from people his age. That's what made him a little special. It separated him. And having those attributes as far as having long arms, long legs, fast, that helped big time as well. Every year he was growing. He went from like pretty much, a regional type athlete, and then over the year, from junior, senior year, the scouts started coming at him.
I knew that this kid had a tremendous future.
Terrence was courted by several top D1 schools and accepted a scholarship to play football for Oregon in 2004.
It was unbelievable joy. It was so wonderful, and everybody was hugging, jumping up and down. Oregon was a top-notch program, and they had plans for him. Big plans.
Terrence took it upon himself to say, hey, my family deserves the world, and I'm gonna work my butt off to get there and give it to them. And that was his goal.
But now, this hometown hero has been gunned down in cold blood, and there's a brazen killer on the loose.
I refer to it as assassination. The rage and anger behind the suspect in this was not something you see every day.
This was a young boy who had gone from the Richmond hood to the Walnut Creek suburb and become this All-American, and to be shot and killed like this 2 days before he is gonna leave and go to the University of Oregon, it was painful. But why would somebody shoot him? Literally, why?
In the early 2000s, gang activity in the Iron Triangle made it the most dangerous area in Richmond.
And gangs in Richmond usually come by, where you're from as opposed to colors and stuff. They don't bang colors.
There's a lot of turf going on. You have neighborhoods that are at war.
Now, Richmond's violence has claimed the life of promising young football star Terrence Kelly. As word of his murder spreads throughout the city, Terrence's loved ones rush to the scene.
It was just so surreal. I didn't want to believe it. I actually tried to go under the caution tape, I just wanted to shake him and wake him up, hoping he'd just, jump up. Terrence's dad is there, and all you hear is my baby, my baby, my baby, my baby. To hear a grown man break down and saying my baby as if it's an infant, like you can just hear and feel the pain in everyone's voice. And then you hear my grandmother, she finally gets to the crime scene. She screams, and her scream, I can still close my ears and hear it. And then she ends up having a heart attack.
Paramedics transport Terrence's grandmother to the hospital as homicide detectives search the crime scene for clues.
Just one of the items that was located was a gray beanie. It was an item that looked like it shouldn't naturally be there. So they secured that.
Investigators also recover 3 shell casings, which came from an unusual weapon for this type of shooting.
It wasn't your typical Uzi, MAC-10, Glock. It was some off-brand .22 rifle. You don't see a lot of that type of rifle casing out there.
There was no indication that robbery was a factor. The shooting occurred on the right-hand side of the car, which would have been on the passenger side. And generally, if you're going to carjack somebody or steal their car, you're going to go on the driver's side so that you can get into the car. Due to the nature of the wounds that the victim suffered, specifically multiple gunshot wounds to the back of his head, it looked clearly to be an execution. But the manner or the reason for the execution wasn't clear.
Among the crowd of onlookers is Terrence's soon-to-be stepbrother, Brandon Young. Police determined that Brandon was the last person TK had spoken with that night. He tells detectives he needed a ride from his girlfriend's house in central Richmond to the other side of town, and Terrence came to pick him up. He and TK were talking on the phone moments before TK was killed.
TK said, wait outside for me. I'm gonna get there, jump in the car, because TK had stuff to do. Brandon says, no, call me when you get here. I don't feel comfortable waiting outside. He says, he gets the call. He starts to go outside. Oh, I forgot my jacket. Runs back upstairs to get his jacket, and then starts to come outside again. Oh, I forgot my phone charger. And then about this time, he hears a gunshot. So he runs outside. and he sees Terrence.
Brandon Young sees his brother laying in the street, and then he runs to the hospital to try to get help because the hospital is it's about 3 to 4 blocks away.
Brandon seems to be upset about TK's death, but something about his story seems off to Detective Peixoto.
So as he's telling me the story, I'm just thinking, this is total bullshit, right? This guy's lying to me. I'm like, either A, he's the shooter, or B, he knows who did it. But he keeps talking. I didn't see anybody. There was nobody out there. It was just a car, just Terrence. Oh my God, Terrence. So I'm like, hey man, you're being untruthful. But just tell me what happened. Well, this is your brother. I didn't even call him stepbrother. That's your brother. You know, your brother's dead, and you know who did it, and you're not going to tell me.
Eventually, Detective Peixoto threatens to arrest Brandon. And even though it's a bluff, the move pays off.
And then all of a sudden, oh, you know what? I think Darren and Larry Pratcher were out there.
Detectives are unsure why Brandon was withholding information. But for now, they let him go. Armed with 2 new names to pursue, 15-year-old Darren Pratcher and his older brother Larry, they recanvassed the neighborhood.
Everybody was trying to help us because they didn't think Terrence Kelly deserved to be killed. And he wasn't part of the gang, wasn't part of the drug game, so people were more forthcoming with information.
Rumors are that it was Darren Pratcher specifically who had a particular beef with Terrence.
There was allegations and rumors that they had an issue dealing with a basketball game, that Terrence had slighted Pratcher, and Pratcher took offense at that.
It came in enough to where I was able to get enough probable cause for a search warrant and an arrest warrant.
But will police find Darren before someone else in Richmond does?
Well, he knew that they were going to be looking for him. The streets can be very mean.
Once we went public with his name, one of Terrence's friends that was on the fringe, they would have killed him. He had nowhere to hide.
Terrence Kelly's success encouraged a new generation of kids in Richmond, proof that with hard work and determination, they can make it out too. But his death was a grim reminder that sometimes, no matter what you do, the streets can be unforgiving.
Everyone knew Terrence was gonna make it. Terrence didn't make it. Terrence got killed. What does that mean for me? You know, so a lot of people lost hope, I think, because you would think person that's not into gangs, person that's not dealing drugs would get a pass of some type, you know. When they don't get a pass, what makes me think I'm gonna make it out?
Richmond police are investigating the murder of the city's star running back, Terrence Kelly. So far, their best suspect is 15-year-old Darren Pratcher, who has been telling just about anyone who would listen how much he despises TK. According to the rumors, TK not only slighted Darren on the court, but it happened other times as well.
It was because Terrence was disrespecting him at a couple of parties. You know, he's big man, he walks in, everybody knows TK. Hey, TK, what's up? He's slapping fives. And he goes down the line saying hi to everybody. He doesn't say hi to Darren. And Darren took that as a big disrespect. Darren actually challenged him to fight. And Terrence was like, no, man, I'll break you in half. I don't need to fight you. And so Darren took that even as more disrespect.
But is a bruised ego enough to make a 15-year-old commit murder? Detectives secure a warrant for Darren's arrest to find out.
We served a search warrant on Darren Pratcher's house like at 3 or 4 in the morning.
Darren's older brother Larry is home, but Darren himself is nowhere to be found.
I think he knew eventually we were going to be onto him. That's why he wasn't home.
Larry is taken into custody for questioning, but denies any knowledge of the crime. He's later released without charges, but not before detectives execute a search warrant for the Pratcher home. What they find in Darren's room is chilling.
We did find, during the search, some rap that was penned by Mr. Pratcher. And part of the rap lyrics indicated that he would shoot people, fill them full of lead, and if they were in his territory, and that they shouldn't be in his territory, Deep Sea. And Deep Sea was another way of saying Central Richmond.
The Deep Sea Gang was just beginning to emerge in Richmond and had gone largely undetected by police. That is, until now.
According to the rap lyrics that we recovered, he definitely was a member, and it did highlight Deep Sea and its existence. The Deep Sea Gang, they had issues with people who weren't from Central Richmond, people like from North Richmond, people from South Richmond.
TK was from North Richmond, but had gone to pick up his stepbrother Brandon in Central Richmond on the night of the murder. Was this, combined with the disrespect he felt he'd received from TK on more than one occasion, the last straw for Darren? Based on his lyrics, detectives believe so.
Pratchett had made statements that Terrence shouldn't be in the neighborhood because he's not from there.
Police give Darren's name and photograph to the media, hoping someone will help locate him before street justice catches up to him first.
There's nowhere to hide when you're 15 and you're wanted for murder, and your name and everything's in the paper.
He's got no outside contacts to go to. He can't survive on his own. So his option to turn himself in was probably the only option he had.
Fortunately for Darren, he does just that. 7 days after TK's murder, he strolls into the Richmond Police Department alongside his family pastor and gives himself up.
I think Pratchett had talked with his mother and his father, and they convinced him the thing to do was to turn himself in, and with the understanding that he was going to be caught.
When Detective Peixoto walks into the interrogation room, he's taken aback by the young man's physical appearance.
He was like 5'3", 5'2", maybe 125, 30. I was amazed on how young this kid looked. But you have to get past that and think of the heinous crime that I suspect he did.
Detectives are just as surprised by how well the teenager handles the interrogation.
Wasn't there, didn't do nothing. So, we try to pick away. No, Darren, were you there earlier in the day? Because guess what? I've got witnesses saying they saw you there. No. The only thing that got him nervous is when I showed him a picture of the beanie. I said, I can get DNA out of that beanie, right? Hair all over it. I said, is that going to be your DNA? Then boom, cuts off, stops talking.
At that point, he chose to invoke his right to remain silent, which was his right. And Mitch Peixoto, being the good officer he was, he honored that request and didn't ask him any more questions. And he said they were going to arrest him and take him to juvenile hall.
But on the way to the juvenile jail, Darren suddenly changes his mind.
He starts just being chatty-Cathy with us, right? Now he wants to ask us questions.
On the way, Pratchett said he wanted to talk. And Mitch told him, says, hey, you invoked. I can't talk with you. Conversation's over.
But Darren continues to insist that he's changed his mind and wants to talk. And he's willing to do it without an attorney.
So we get to the parking lot. We do the Miranda. And he says, well, I was there. I heard the shots. Everybody took off running, and I was the last one to leave. That's why people think I was the shooter. So yeah, that's my beanie. I was there, but I wasn't the shooter.
If Darren Pratchett is telling the truth about not shooting Terrence Kelly, detectives have the wrong suspect in custody. But if he didn't kill TK, who did? Darren says he was hanging out with a group of guys when someone suddenly started shooting. In the chaos, Darren lost his beanie, but he's adamant that he was not the shooter.
I said, well, did you drop your beanie because you're running away so fast? Yeah. I was the last one to leave. Everybody was in front of me, and I don't know if I kicked my beanie off or what, but I fell. He just wanted to let me know he was there, he was the last one to run, and that's why people thought he did it. But he didn't.
Even though he denies being the shooter, Darren is booked into juvenile jail until detectives can sort out his story. As they dig into Darren's background, they find a kid who once had plenty of promise, but eventually fell in with the wrong crowd.
Pratchett's mother and father were very hardworking. It wasn't like he had an absentee father. or a mother who didn't love him or show him any care or love. He had that. His peer group were criminals. His peer group were gang members. We got into troubles and fights in school. He had a history of being disobedient to authority figures.
Detectives flood the streets, putting pressure on Darren's Deep Sea affiliates, hoping to find anyone willing to talk.
And we were doing a lot of enforcement on anybody that we thought could be part of Deep Sea or anybody could be part of a central gang. They were out there every day messing with these guys. They couldn't sell their drugs as easy as they were because the cops were all down there looking for them. Hey, you find a Deep Sea guy, you arrest a Deep Sea guy, call me.
The move pays off.
I was getting calls. We arrested these two brothers. I think it was maybe in a stolen car. So they brought them in. That was just some good police work by patrol to pick up these guys, and then we're able to realize that they're part of the Central Gang or part of Deep Sea.
Detectives offer up a deal. They can go light on the theft charges if these guys give up some information in return.
Got some background information on their relationship with Darren Pratcher, their relationship with Terrence Kelly. Hey, what do you know about it? Well, I wasn't there. I'm not saying you were there. What have you heard on the street?
The brothers offer up information on the rifle used to kill TK, but that's as far as they're willing to go.
Well, they gave us just enough, but didn't tell us everything they probably knew about the gun. They just said, hey, if the rifle that was used was hidden in the Barrett Apartments in a girl's apartment.
The Barrett Apartments, or the Barretts as they're known in Central Richmond, are directly across the street from where TK was gunned down. They say the girl was known to hold stolen weapons from members of the Deep Sea. Like Darren Pratcher, she's only 15 years old.
We go to the Barrett Apartments. A little young 15-year-old comes home like, hey, mom comes out, and she's like, you baby, you better tell him everything you know about that, you know.
Much to their surprise, the young girl holds nothing back.
She was chatty Cathy. Oh yeah, I was holding the gun for these guys, do it all the time. And I'm like, well, how did the gun get from your apartment just basically across the street? She goes, oh, I gave it to Darren. Darren who? Darren Pratcher.
But she says Darren told her he needed it because there was a man trying to kill him.
Pratcher and his friends had been hanging out in the block, and they had been shooting paintballs and things at other people, and he had hit this other girl. She had gotten upset and said she was going to tell her father. Supposedly, he had been threatened by this girl's father that he was going to come and get him. Pratcher then tried to secure a firearm for allegedly to protect himself.
Now more witnesses are coming forward to tell police they saw Darren waiting on the street with a group of other young men when Terrence pulled up.
The general consensus is they saw an individual. Some identified Mr. Pratcher, others didn't want to identify him, but they said that they saw him take out a rifle and that the Terrence Kelly's car had pulled up in front of the residence and that Pratcher approached him and then just started firing the shots.
Witnesses say the gang scattered as soon as the shooting started, and Darren stashed the rifle behind a house as he ran away from the scene. Investigators recover the rifle and run it for prints.
It looked to me like an old World War II rifle. It was very odd. To this day, all the homicides I worked back then never had a weapon like that. Like, you know, who uses this in this type of a murder, you know? We pulled one fingerprint off that rifle. It just happened to be Darren Pratcher's left ring finger, boom, right there on the stock of the rifle. So that was the nail in the coffin right there.
It also answers the question, why this type of unusual weapon?
The suspect's 15, he's gonna take whatever kind of gun he can get his hands on. Everything kind of came together.
But is it possible TK's murder was a case of mistaken identity? According to his family, TK wasn't even driving his own car the night of the murder.
Somebody said, well, he didn't want to drive the Mustang into Richmond because he thought he was going to get carjacked or something.
He was actually in his dad's car. It's an old white Oldsmobile.
Supposedly, Mr. Pratcher felt that the guy he was shooting was the girl's father, would come back to exact revenge on him.
When Terrence Kelly was killed in 2004, the Deep Sea was only a fledgling gang in Richmond. But once news of his murder swept through the city, the gang's influence and reputation exploded.
Once you start getting gangs publicity, then they start to get a life of their own. And that increased with the Deep Sea. I think it empowered some of them. They built up that reputation that they were looking for. And I think it gave them some street credibility, and it made people think that, Deep Sea is somebody to be feared.
On August 19, 2004, Terrence Kelly is laid to rest at Hilltop Community Church in Richmond. Thousands of people come to pay tribute to him.
It was about, I want to say about 4,000 people at his funeral. The Oregon coach showed up. The teams that recruited him even showed up and spoke of his character. That was beautiful. The funeral in general was one of the longest funerals I've ever been to, but I can understand why, because it's a lot that was to be said about Terrence.
It was just devastating. It broke everybody's heart. It broke the community's heart. It broke the family's heart. It broke the neighborhood's heart. And it broke Richmond's heart when that boy got killed.
Terrence's dad seemed to be the hardest hit.
Every time he talked about TK, his eyes would well up with tears, and he would think and reminisce about what could have been.
He was never the same after that. It killed his spirit. I mean, that boy was everything to him.
To honor his memory and preserve his legacy, Terrence's father announces the creation of the Terrence Kelly Foundation to help underprivileged youth.
Terrence's dad wanted to put something together in his son's name and felt like it needed to be done. His job was to drive this and say, I'm going to save as many kids as I can. The goal is to save them all. Just trying to make his son proud in some type of way. The fundraisers, the silent auctions, all that money went directly back into the program to give back to the people, the kids of Richmond.
While TK's loved ones cope with his loss, investigators continue to build a case against their prime suspect, Darren Pratchett. Darren's fingerprints prove he was the gunman, and the type of rifle he used tells police something else as well.
It was a bolt-action rifle. And in a bolt-action rifle, in order to reload, you have to pull the bolts back, which would eject expended round. And then as you push the bolt forward again, it loads another round in. You have to actually take your time, and since the car was moving, you have to actually be looking for your target, aiming for your target, and hitting your target.
That makes it difficult to believe Darren didn't know who he was shooting at.
He hits him, the car starts rolling forward. He racks another bullet into the chamber. Boom, shoots again, second shot. Thinks, boom, racks another one in, hits him a third time, and then racks the fourth one in and shoots him a fourth time. So this is definitely, he was the intended target.
But the issue becomes back to is, why did he do what he did? And that was a big question. Did he do it because of revenge, because he disliked TK and he wanted to take out his animosity toward him? Or did he just do it out of just impetuousness?
The rap lyrics found in Darren's bedroom contain a potential clue.
He was writing a rap about shooting people and defending his turf and defending his area.
Deep Sea had a bunch of young kids between the ages of 12 and 15, and what I call baby gangsters. They were all trying to make a name for themselves, and that was one of the reasons he did what he did. He's this little tiny kid. Nobody's going to respect you unless you've killed somebody, right? And he wants to be a gangster. So I think it just happened to be circumstance that he got into a beef with Terrence and decided, that's the guy that I'm going to get my street creds off of. And it makes it even better. I killed the great Terrence Kelly.
And I think he was extremely jealous of Terrence's success. He was jealous of Terrence's standing in the neighborhood. I mean, he was just jealous of Terrence, period.
Now the question is, how did Darren know where to find TK that night? Detective Peixoto has his own theory.
I said, well, somebody had to know he's going to be here, right? That's when I started putting 2 and 2 together, and it didn't take me long to figure out that Brandon Young was part of it. I think, unbeknownst to Terrence, is that Brandon had been hanging out with people that were kind of starting up the deep sea baby gangsters, and he was getting pretty deep into the gang life. Terrence is leaving, so what does he have? What does Brandon have? All he's gonna have is his little gang buddies, right? So now he's gotta give up his own brother to give himself some street cred.
Based on his theory, Detective Peixoto takes Brandon in for further questioning. And once again, he denies any involvement.
He had a set story, and he probably had been working on that story. It was, I needed a ride. Very monotone. I needed a ride. I called him at this time. He called, when he got here, I ran out to the car, forgot my jacket, and then I forgot my phone charger. He told me about that darn phone charger probably 20 times. I asked Brandon, who all knew that he was going to be here to pick you up? Oh, I think just me and my girlfriend, maybe my girlfriend's mom. He hit all those points that he wanted to tell me and wouldn't elaborate. So, red flags were going off.
Police ask Brandon to take a polygraph test, which he fails.
In my mind, minimally, he conspired to kill Terrence Kelly. But in my mind, it was deeper than that. He totally set him up.
Richmond police have already arrested Darren Pratcher for the murder of Terrence Kelly. But now their lead detective suspects he had a co-conspirator, TK's stepbrother, Brandon Young.
This is how I think that went down. Darren wants to hurt, maybe even kill Terrence. He lets Brandon know that. Brandon knows that he's got to put up or shut up if he wants to be hanging out with these guys. So he wakes up some deal with Darren. Brandon says, hey, I'm going to be at my girlfriend's house tonight. Terrence can come pick me up. You want to handle your business with him? He's leaving tomorrow for Oregon, so you might want to do it. So Darren, he goes to the girl's house in the Barrett apartment and picks up the rifle. They figure out a time where everything's good for them, which is probably around 10:30. Brandon calls Terrence for the ride and then tells Darren, hey, he's coming to pick me up like in 20 minutes. He's going to be here. Brandon's got to have an alibi. He stays in the house. Terrence rolls up, calls Brandon, got his foot on the brake, waiting for Brandon to come out. Darren comes up behind, starts shooting. I pushed, you got to charge Brandon. You got to charge Brandon and Darren with conspiracy, because it's there. I can prove it. Just put me on the stand.
Despite Detective Peixoto's confidence in Brandon's involvement, the district attorney decides not to charge anyone else with the murder. Darren Pratcher is the only suspect they'll be taking to court.
It was heartbreaking because to this day, I know that they had something to do with it.
I couldn't give him any solace to the belief that Brandon Young had been involved in the murder itself in some fashion. And there was always that lingering question in his mind.
As for TK's family, the idea of Brandon's alleged betrayal was too much to bear. They left the theories to the police and remained focused on convicting the young man who pulled the trigger. And on August 23, 2005, they would get their chance. Although he was only 15 at the time of the murder, Darren Pratcher is tried as an adult.
Obviously we have Darren on a very strong case because we have the gun, a fingerprint, him at the scene, a motive.
I don't know whether it was jealousy, envy. I don't know whether it was protection of your turf or your gang. The only thing I can say for sure is that Pratcher executed Terrence Kelly.
The absolute why, no one knows.
But Darren's attorneys argue that he never planned to kill TK. Those bullets were intended for someone else.
They were trying to allege that, they were hanging on the corner because they were just waiting to protect themselves because they felt that this girl's father was going to come after them, and therefore they were going to stand on the corner and look for him just to tell him to stop. But I don't believe that that's what happened. The individual they were talking about was like a 55-year-old man, a 60-year-old man. Terrence Kelly was an athlete. The car stopped under the straight light, so he had plenty of chance to see who was in there.
The jury agrees with the prosecution.
They found him guilty of first-degree murder and use of a firearm. He got sentenced to 50 years to life.
Darren's alleged co-conspirator, Brandon Young, receives a different kind of justice.
Street justice found Brandon Young. 4 years later, he walks into Pinole Valley Lanes in Pinole, is enjoying a night at the bowling alley. Next thing you know, a couple guys walk inside the bowling alley, shoot him, and walk out. And a lot of witnesses, and the suspects are still outstanding.
Nearly 20 years after Terrence Kelly's death, the city of Richmond still grieves his loss. But his legacy lives on.
Landry came up with the foundation, and how many kids were able to go to De La Salle under Terrence's scholarship. You know what I mean? Like, that's very impactful. That gave him a sense of life and pride. You know, when you lose your only child and all of your investment went into that one child, it's hard to take. He could have easily jumped off the bridge a long time ago, but he chose to stand and fight for the kids of that community.
Losing Terrence gave me my purpose, I would say. Since he's passed, my literal goal in life has just been keeping his name and legacy alive and making sure that I take the steps to bring, pride back to my family name. He was such a light, and seeing that light when I close my eyes is what keeps me going every day.
So if you really want to honor him, then you be Terrence Kelly. It's that simple. You become that. You don't let folks like that die in vain. You just don't, you can't.
The city of East Cleveland, Ohio is just 7 miles from downtown Cleveland, but can feel like it's a world away. It has undergone dramatic changes since its founding in 1911 as Cleveland's first suburb.
When Cleveland started booming and they started needing room to expand, they started moving a little bit east.
And the person who had the most influence in making it what it became was John D. Rockefeller. He owned a lot of the property around here.
He built his beautiful home up on a hill in East Cleveland where you can actually see Lake Erie from the front yard and everything. Massive facility, absolutely gorgeous.
Other powerful Gilded Age era businessmen followed Rockefeller's precedent, building beautiful homes and ornate mansions along Euclid Avenue, which became known as Millionaire's Row.
Many homes that were built in East Cleveland back in those days, they're over 100 years old now. You might find where they have 11, 12 fireplaces and the ornate woodworking and the great big massive rooms and the giant windows.
By 1950, some 40,000 people lived in East Cleveland, making it Cleveland's most densely populated suburb.
When I initially grew up in East Cleveland, it was a nice city. Kids running, playing, the normal things.
But as the 1960s unfolded, East Cleveland began to undergo profound changes as manufacturing jobs dried up.
The factories had been built in the 20s, 30s. They're expensive to maintain. They're inefficient by today's standards. So General Electric builds a new plant somewhere else. And General Motors closed the Fisher Body plant.
Businesses started fleeing the area. GE had a major facility in East Cleveland. They basically packed up and left.
As wealthier white families followed the jobs elsewhere, many of the less mobile black residents remained, many homes were left abandoned altogether, while others fell under the control of slumlords.
Slumlords just let the community just, fall to its demise. Wasn't paying property taxes, houses became abandoned, all the businesses left, so the tax base left. Everybody is renters.
While city, state, and federal resources were funneled into neighboring white communities, East Cleveland was largely left to fend for itself.
The schools and homes start falling apart. Your sewer lines, your water lines, your roadways, your bridges, your housing, your factories, your business opportunities.
And once that happens, it's over. It becomes a shell of itself like that.
East Cleveland started declining and everyone seemed to ignore it. No one wanted to address it.
By 2013, the city's population had plunged from 40,000 in 1950 to just over 16,000. More than 4,000 homes sat vacant, and crime was rampant. Making matters worse, corruption ran rife through city government, since no one outside of the city seemed to be paying attention.
We're talking about the mayor, the council people, and the police. The corruption in East Cleveland is obvious and blatant. You can get away with anything in East Cleveland. You can get away with murders.
It was a reality that would prove all too true in the summer of 2013. For East Cleveland resident Belinda Miner, her nightmare begins on July 10th, 2013, when her 18-year-old daughter, Sherelda Terry, suddenly disappears.
So I was at work. My daughter, Brittany, she called me on my cell phone and she said, Sherelda didn't make it home. And I said, what? She said, Sherelda didn't make it home.
Sherelda is Belinda's youngest daughter. Earlier that morning, Sherelda said her goodbyes before her stepdad gave her a ride to her summer job at East Clark Elementary School.
I was knocked out asleep, but I know that she gave me a kiss before she left. Her stepfather took her to her summer job every morning. So she would never be walking that early in the morning. She always had transportation.
Since her grandparents lived in East Cleveland, Sherelda would often walk to their house after work. And on this particular evening, she was planning to attend a Bible study meeting, but she never arrived at either place.
I just felt very uneasy because it's unlike her not to be in the place that she said that she's going to be in or where she's expected to be. And because she isn't, something drastic is happening.
Sherelda's family files missing persons reports with the Cleveland and East Cleveland police departments. After recounting their timeline to officers, Sherelda's family launches a desperate search to find her.
When your child goes missing, you never think that this is happening. This is really happening to you.
Born on October 20th, 1994, Sherelda Helen Terry was the youngest of two girls to her parents, Belinda and Van Terry.
Sherelda was my world, my right-hand man. You know what I mean? She helped to shape me so that I actually was able to become a better person. She was a natural born leader, even as a child.
Homeschooled since the 4th grade, Sherelda excelled at writing.
I noticed her gift started to come where she loved to write. She wrote poetry. She loved Dove soap. So she wrote like a commercial about her love in a relationship that she had with Dove soap. I began to identify that she was really talented in writing.
Sherelda found faith when she was young, and it became a driving force in shaping her life.
Sherelda wanted to have Bible study on her birthday, which is so unique because most people want to go out to dinner, they want to do something else, but she loved the Lord. She's had an upbringing where you're brought up to learn to love people and help. So she just went above and beyond helping other people. She spent a lot of her time at the East Cleveland Public Library tutoring students. She even tutored college students.
Although her parents divorced and Belinda remarried, Sherelda's family remained close. Her late father, Van, wouldn't hesitate to sing his daughter's praises.
He would always come and hang out with my dad. They'd sit on the porch and he'd talk about her. Always talk about her. Every accomplishment, every achievement that she ever made. Sherelda was his everything. He loved her. Like the best father that he could ever be to her.
Sherelda planned on attending college, but before leaving, she accepted a summer job in East Cleveland.
She'd gotten a job at East Clark Elementary School. She was going to be doing some clerical work and cleaning.
But when Sherelda fails to return home on July 10th, 2013, it raises immediate concerns about her whereabouts.
I was the missing persons liaison at the time. I called her mom, and then I talked to her dad. And they were very concerned because she had never, ever done this before. Something was wrong, absolutely. Especially after she hadn't contacted anybody. So I was like, okay, let's check the city cameras.
As Detective McDuffie reviews the footage from July 10th, she sees Sherelda walking along a street not far from her summer job at East Clark Elementary.
We saw her walking up 152nd and across. There's a great big grocery store and little stores through this lot. And then she disappears. And I'm like, okay, that's not good.
Over the next week, Sherelda's family mounts an extensive search.
People were going door to door in the neighborhood of the path that she traveled, how she got home. I remember people driving around different places, hanging up flyers, sending flyers online. And I remember myself and my girlfriend getting in the car going to visit drug dealers. Because people who sell drugs usually know the whole neighborhood.
But as the days pass, there's no sign of Sherelda.
All I could do was pray, and I was just praying that God would hear me, that she would come home, that I would have her back.
But what no one yet knows is that Sherelda Terry's disappearance is tragically only the beginning of a nightmare that will haunt not only her family, but all of East Cleveland.
It let me know that you cannot judge a book by its cover. It let me know that in the community, you don't know what's going on in people's head. All of us are vulnerable.
By July 19th, 2013, 18-year-old Sherelda Terry had been missing for more than a week. She was last seen walking down a street in East Cleveland, Ohio.
It's just heart-wrenching for any family to have to experience this. For me, my prayer became, God, no matter what the subject, no matter what, can you just bring her home, no matter what? I just began to really pray and ask God, come on, it's like, can you just please allow my child, no matter what the situation is, just allow her to be found.
That morning, a 911 call comes into the East Cleveland Police Department that changes everything. A resident reports a disturbing smell coming from a garage off Hayden Avenue.
I know when a dead animal smell, and I know what garbage smell, but I mean, that smell is so freaking strong you can throw up. I mean, we just want to make sure ain't nobody in that other side.
The garage, with several parking bays, is located near a busy intersection.
Once the police arrived, they noticed that there were an immense amount of flies that were just permeating through the bricks. So where the bricks had not been pitted or fixed, they were just coming through, and the smell was just awful.
Officers find a lock on the garage door.
The police said, well, who parks in the first bay? And it was this Michael Madison.
A background check reveals 35-year-old Michael Madison lives in the neighboring apartment, just above a cable television business.
The woman from the cable company had his phone number, tried to call him and say, hey, the police are here, we need to get in here. There's some type of smell that's emanating. He paused for a minute and then he hung up. Well, the officer that was there said, we've got to break in. So he broke the lock and they went in.
The stench inside the garage bay is overwhelming.
They found a car that had been parked there, but on the side of the car was a comforter, and on top of this comforter were big industrial-sized garbage bags.
An officer starts cutting through the plastic.
There were layers of garbage bags, and so as a result, there were about 6 bags. Finally, he cut through.
Inside the garbage bags, they find the partially decomposed and mutilated body of a young black woman. Her body is folded in half at the waist, and her head is bound to her legs. there is a ligature still tied around her neck. A crowd gathers outside as word of the gruesome discovery spreads throughout the neighborhood.
Michael Madison's friends and neighbors were calling him to come back saying, they found a body. They found a body in your garage. You better come here. They're going to start asking questions. What's going on? He doesn't respond to them.
As more investigators descend upon the garage, onlookers see Michael Madison pass by the crime scene.
He drove by, and some of the neighbors saw. They see him in a passenger seat of a car driving by. Somebody gets the plate, and then they do a bolo on the plate. And then they start looking for him.
Police focus on those closest to Michael.
The circle is small, and then you go out from the circle. So mom was the next person, or baby mama with the 2 kids, because he had 2 kids that he periodically saw. They go over to the mother's house, and that's where he's at.
But just because they've located Michael doesn't mean he's going to cooperate.
He says he's going to come out, he's not going to come out, he's going to come out. They were also concerned because the mother was in the house. They didn't know if children were in the house.
As they surround the residence, officers continue trying to negotiate with Michael.
They actually had, I think, a bullhorn asking him to just surrender. Mr. Madison, please surrender. Mr. Madison, come out. Michael, do you want to have a conversation? No, I'm not coming out. You know, that kind of thing.
For 2 hours, police try to coax Michael out of the house with no luck. When that fails, they call in a SWAT team.
They position themselves, and they're like, if you don't come out, then we're coming in. SWAT has to be very conscientious about those other folks and what harm may come to them if they go busting in.
After a tense 2-hour standoff, officers decide to enter the home by force.
But before they were on the verge of going in, he comes out in pants and a t-shirt and his hands above his head.
In a flash, it's over. Michael Madison surrenders. Police take him into custody for questioning. Back at the garage, officers and investigators from multiple agencies work to identify their victim. Finding no identification on the victim's body, authorities obtain a warrant to search Madison's apartment. Inside a closet, they find a purse belonging to Sherelda Terry. Within hours, the coroner confirms the body in the garage as Sherelda's as well. Investigators from the Cleveland and East Cleveland police departments break the news to Sherelda's heartbroken family.
I just remember falling to the floor. I just couldn't believe it was her. I didn't want it to be her. I didn't want it to be my child that wasn't going to come home. Everything just went silent. Everything for me in my mind, everything just paused because I could not believe that was my daughter.
Oh, it was heartbreaking. That was one of the saddest days of my life in my career.
Investigators are eager to talk to Michael Madison about how Sherelda's body ended up in his garage. Madison is immediately evasive.
I got called saying that they found the body in the garage. The place on Storm Hayden. Is that where you live at? I don't particularly really know where. She's all over the place.
It's a song and a dance with him. He'll tell you a little bit, then he goes on a tangent, then he comes back to it. It's never direct.
Investigators ask about a cryptic remark Madison had made after his arrest.
You had told me that we were going to make history here. This is historic. And I'm trying to figure out what the hell was he talking about. You don't know what I was talking about? I can't figure it out for the life of me.
Madison's answer is just as puzzling.
I guess I might be on TV in front of the judge too on some high profile, whether I did it or not.
He's very arrogant. I mean, doesn't even want to discuss Sherelda Terry.
Investigators will have even more questions for Michael Madison when they make yet another gruesome discovery over the next 24 hours.
We found another body. Kill that girl.
As word spreads that Sherelda Terry was the victim found in Michael Madison's garage, worried residents and TV news crews gather at the scene.
I seen the yellow tape, I seen CNN, I seen CBS, I seen all these different news crews. It was like 100 people out there now, and I could see people distraught, and that's when I knew it was something pretty bad.
The district attorney urges police to expand their search throughout East Cleveland.
He told them, you guys have got to start to canvass. If there's one body, there could be another.
We were out there for hours just searching empty houses in the basements and wherever, a body may be.
It doesn't take long for police to make another grisly discovery nearby. They find a second body.
Oh, it's right behind the garage. It's in a big pile of debris, twigs, branches are over it. They start looking and then they start, touching.
Her body is wrapped in several layers of garbage bags, with her body folded at the waist, just like Sherelda.
We don't know who she is at that point. We don't know who she is until she goes to the medical examiner's office. Her body was really decomposed.
It didn't have that fresh smell like Sherelda.
Investigators once again are eager to talk to their prime suspect, Michael Madison.
We found another body. Feel later on. I have no recollection of that.
Once they found the second bag and they questioned him, he said he didn't know them.
Can you tell me who the girl was next to the car? I don't know. I don't know her.
That was his big thing. Oh, I don't know them. Doesn't know her, doesn't know her, doesn't know her.
Investigators confront him with the evidence linking him directly to Sherelda Terry.
The young girl you said you ever seen before? Right? Her purse is in your apartment. Like I can't explain more. We need to talk to you.
While he continues to deny any knowledge of Sherelda and the second victim, Michael does open up about a general hatred that he has toward women.
I haven't had issues from males. My issues come like, baby mama, mother, females in general.
Based on his own words, he was never good enough for them, or they said he was never good enough, and it drew the picture pretty clearly because he felt that they would dominate him and that they told him what to do and they were all bad. The hate that he has for women was so pronounced just by the words that he chose to describe them.
After hour upon hour of being pushed by detectives, Michael suddenly breaks down and drops a bombshell.
Bits and pieces would start to come out. There would be some type of capitulation after a while.
According to Michael, he found the body of Sherelda Terry in a closet in his apartment, but he claims someone else must have put her there.
How did the body get in the closet? Up in the front room there?
That I don't know. So I let people, come in and use the place.
And what did it look like when you found it?
It's the bad. That's why I took took the body down and put it in the garage.
Michael claims he didn't go to the police because he was afraid of them. While investigators continue to question Michael Madison, the broken and battered community of East Cleveland bands together to help search for more victims.
It's almost like a horror movie that you don't want it to be reality.
Imagine like 4 or 5 people all going in the house together and splitting up in the house and going through every closet, every bedroom, every space, looking for a body.
It doesn't take long before searchers find a third victim.
There were a couple of houses right in the general area, and they found a window was open and a garbage bag that looked like all the other garbage bags sitting right.
After the gruesome discovery of a third body in East Cleveland, it now appears there's been a violent serial killer wreaking havoc throughout the city. It leaves people terrified.
Me being young and Sherelle Terry being young when she came up missing, it's like, do I want to go outside? Do I want to even go to the store? Do I want my mama to go to the store? Do I want my grandmother to go to the store and just be one of them people to just disappear without a trace?
Residents can't help but feel East Cleveland's neglect, poverty, and corruption all contributed to this unfolding horror.
Check this out. We're sitting here, right? We're on one of the main arteries of East Cleveland right now, outside of Euclid Avenue. Have you seen a police officer? Have you seen a cop? We've been watching cars go up and down, no patrol cars.
When you have grown up in a society that writes you off and you're burdened by just trying to survive yourself, as much as you want to care for and look out for your fellow, neighbor, sometimes it's just hard because you're just trying to survive yourself.
It's terrible. So basically, if you got the wrong mentality, if you decide to kill somebody and you plot it right, you can get away with it around here.
At the Cuyahoga County Medical Examiner's Office, the third victim found is identified through her fingerprints.
The third body was Angela Deskins, and she was found just down the street a bit in an abandoned house. Again, same MO, 6 or 7 bags. Their bodies were folded up, duct taped.
Like Sherelle Terry, 38-year-old Angela Deskins has ligature marks around her neck. A background check reveals she had gone missing 6 weeks earlier.
When I heard that 3 women was found in East Cleveland, I did not think it was her until I got the word that it was her, and that was her.
Born in 1975, Angela, or Angie as she was known to her friends and family, was one of 4 children born to Marie and Robert Deskins.
Well, everybody loved her. She always had a smile on her face, always. And anything she could do for anybody, she would do it.
My little sister is like real close friends with her little sister. We all went to Euclid High School. She was really nice. She was a pretty girl. She was pleasant. She was soft-spoken. She was a lady.
After high school, Angie spent time working with her father.
He had a demolition company tearing down houses and things, and she got involved with it. He taught her how to use the machines, and I think she really loved that,
Angie was last seen on June 7th, 2013, at her father's business, some 7 miles from where her body was found. For Angie's family, the 6 weeks that followed were excruciating, but it pales in comparison to what they feel now.
And it was just so hard. It's still hard because even it's been 2013 and it's still hard for me.
Fingerprints and tattoos help investigators identify the second victim found as 28-year-old Shatisha Sheely.
She was found second, but was probably the first one to be murdered in September of 2012. Her body was in 7 bags wrapped in a comforter and a sheet, and that was behind the garage. She had decomposed the most because she had probably been out there since September of 12, almost a year. The manner of death was homicidal violence because you could tell she did still have on her face bruising and a black eye.
At the time of her disappearance, Shatisha was dealing with some personal issues and had little contact with her family. Her daughter was living with family members while she tried to work things out.
Shatisha Sheely was a young woman that lived a very different life and really no contact with her family other than birthdays.
Because Shatisha would have long gaps in communication with family, there was no current missing persons report on file for her. According to resident Eric Wilson, he believes East Cleveland itself bears some of the responsibility for 3 women to go missing in the same small community.
Don't nobody care. They're hearing this type of stuff all the time. So we done got numb. It's just another person gone. Who cares? That seems like the feel, the spirit of certain parts of this community.
After the discovery of the third victim, all within a stone's throw of Michael Madison's apartment, investigators are concerned there may be more women hidden throughout East Cleveland.
By the time they found the third body, they're like, are there any more? And they continually kept asking him because they thought when there's 3 bodies, there's got to be 4.
Madison keeps saying he knows nothing.
How many bodies are we gonna find, Mike? Do me a favor and just answer me that. That's all I want. I don't know, man. Am I gonna find another one? I don't know.
Cleveland has taken a severe toll on the community, leaving black women especially vulnerable.
I believe the reason that it's possible to have 3 black women that go missing from the same community within a matter of months is because people have decided to kind of throw the community away. It's not a place that many people care about.
If 3 white women came up missing in one of the more prominent suburbs of Cleveland, like Shaker Heights or Beechwood, it would be national news, if not international news, within 72 hours.
Ohio are investigating suspected serial killer Michael Madison after 3 bodies were found near his apartment. They learned Madison is well known in his neighborhood.
A lot of people I know knew him because he went to Euclid High School. He was a little younger than me though. He didn't go to school with me, but he went to school with people I know. And they didn't really describe him as bad, but they described him as a little strange.
After high school, Madison stayed in East Cleveland making a living in an illicit trade.
He sold drugs. He was the weed dealer. Everybody knew him. If he liked you, he liked you. If you were a woman, he didn't like you.
Investigators believe Madison met Sherelda about a week before her disappearance as she walked to her grandparents' house after work. Based on phone and text records, it appears he preyed upon her innocence.
She had met this man walking down Rosedale. They exchanged phone numbers. He says he's 25. He says his name is Ivan. She obviously takes an interest in him. A young girl, she's 18.
She didn't have very many friends, and if she had, the friends she had were affiliated with the church. So she didn't venture out a lot. She was an introvert. And they got to talking on Facebook.
Police and prosecutors surmise that Madison was a textbook sociopath with homicidal tendencies brought about by his anger toward women. They also believe he had a certain level of charm that he could flip on and off like a switch.
You could tell he was trying to groom her. You know, I could be your friend, come over to my house, that kind of stuff.
So, being a sociopath, he probably was a real ladies' man, but it was only for his own use.
The day she disappeared, Sherelda sent him another text.
She must have gotten on her iPad, texted him and said, "Are you available?" He said yes. She was coming up one of the streets. He was on the close by. He must have told her, just come to my apartment.
Sherelda was never seen again.
I just saw him as a monster. And as you learn about, they found these other women. Now he's just sadistic in my mindset.
Inside an interrogation room, detectives once again questioned Madison about Sherelda Terry's murder.
He does admit to taking her body out, moving the body.
Alright, Mike, do you know how this girl died?
Madison claims he couldn't remember anything because he was typically high or drunk. But in a stunning admission, Madison says he does remember attacking Shatisha Shealy.
And what he says is that she gets really drunk and that he finds her trying to steal from him.
I asked her what she was doing, and she like, you know,
Madison says he became enraged and began choking Shatisha.
What happened after that?
Put her in the bag and put her in the garage. Stand in the garage for
A couple of months later, Madison says he moved her to a spot behind the garage where police eventually located her. As for Angie Deskins, who was the second victim but the third to be found, Madison claims he doesn't remember anything.
I was the one in that house, like I don't recollect putting none in the house.
To help jog his memory, the next day a pair of veteran Cleveland homicide detectives are brought in to question Madison.
Michael, just between us, how many women, how many girls did you kill? I don't even recollection of one.
Unfortunately, the interview is cut short. Madison is due in court, where he is charged with 3 counts of murder and kidnapping.
He goes to court, he gets a public defender. I'm assuming they said, you're charged with some serious things, don't talk to the police.
Madison is ordered held on a $6 million bond. As prosecutors begin preparing their case for trial, the families of Madison's victims are determined to make him pay, even if it means standing face to face with the monster himself.
He was not remorseful in court. He made all kinds of smirks in court. He was not caring. There was no compassion there. I wonder what in your life happened that caused you.
On Friday, April 15th, 2016, the murder trial of Michael Madison gets underway. It's been almost 3 years since the bodies of Sherelda Terry, Shatisha Sheely, and Angie Deskins were found in and around his garage in East Cleveland.
I finally got to actually see what he looked like. I don't even know that I had words. I just felt disappointed. I felt disappointed because out of an entire life that you get to use, you get to live, the choice that instead of being something great or selecting a career that could save and help somebody, you grew up to murder people.
Prosecutors present a parade of witnesses who describe Michael Madison as angry and bitter toward women, including an ex who had custody of his 2 children.
The neighbors were actually afraid of Michael Madison because of the way he was talking. When he was on the phone screaming at the baby mama, they could hear him, and he would always say after he hung up, "Oh, I have to kill her." It's just very dark.
Despite his repeated denials in his interviews with police, DNA evidence connects Madison to Sherelda Terry's murder along with Angie Deskins.
He had cut all his fingernails, and they found them in a dish. The DNA comes back to Sherelda Terry. DNA started to talk to us. There was a piece of carpet. We tested for DNA. It was Angela Deskins.
Phone records also prove that Angie had communicated with Madison on numerous occasions.
And then all of a sudden, her phone goes dead on this particular day at the end of May.
Prosecutors believe Madison masked his sociopathic tendencies long enough to establish connections with Angie and Shatisha, just like he did with Sherelda.
He took advantage of vulnerable girls.
I don't know if there was any sexual component to his murders, but he was outwardly nice to get them into the position where he could either have them willingly have sex with him or force them to have sex with him and then strangle them.
Michael Madison doesn't testify in his own defense, and his attorney calls no witnesses. His lawyer doesn't deny that Madison killed the women, but tells the jury that he was often impaired by drugs and alcohol. The jury doesn't buy the excuses.
He was found guilty of all charges.
The same jury had to decide whether to impose the death penalty.
They brought in all their mitigation specialists. We brought in our doctor.
According to the defense, Madison suffered severe abuse by his mother as a child.
Motive is known to the person who commits the crime. But here, based on his own words, his disdain for women, power and control, hatred of women. The hatred for women was very pronounced, and it was born out of the fact that his mother had different partners at times who would beat him.
It appeared Madison had felt emasculated in other relationships, causing him to further lash out against women, always placing the blame for his insecurities on them.
There was always something that the other person caused him to act out, when in fact, he had inside himself this hatred that he lashed out at people. He would get so enraged that he had the propensity to strangle, to rape, to bludgeon. I mean, obviously that side of him nobody knew.
His alleged abuse and troubles with past relationships may have caused him to hate women, but according to the state's expert, Madison was not mentally ill.
He didn't have a mental diagnosis. I mean, if he had anything, he could have been antisocial.
The jury recommends the death penalty.
He received a death sentence for all 3 of them.
At the sentencing hearing, as he gave his victim impact statement, Sherelda's father, Van Terry, hit a breaking point.
He went up to speak and he looked over at Michael Madison, and he still had that same smirk and that same disposition of non-caring and not being compassionate. And then when Van looked at him, I guess whatever went on in his mindset, it just caused him to lunge over there.
Never in a million years did I think that Mr. Terry would lunge at him, because he had been so quiet during the whole process. But the immense amount of hurt that he had in his heart just transcended that. He couldn't take it anymore.
The judge imposed the recommended sentence of death.
I forgave him because I was tired of his name. I didn't want to hear his name anymore, because for me, I've forgiven you, and that frees me from you. To hold on to bitterness is like a poison that kills you daily. I refuse to allow the monster to take one more minute, one more second in my mindset, in my flesh, in my person. So forgiveness is for me.
In the years after the murders of Shatisha, Angie, and Sherelda, not much has changed in East Cleveland. It's still a community plagued by poverty and crime.
No one wants to stay in East Cleveland anymore. Everything has just completely deteriorated within the past 10 years.
Still, some hold out hope for their community.
You don't need millions of infrastructure deal money to straighten out some of these situations in East Cleveland. All you need is a heart and some eyes and some people that know how to do things, know how to communicate.
Others hope East Cleveland will never forget the women whose lives were taken away so brutally.
We have Honor Day for the girls in the park in East Cleveland every year. Yeah, she had a big heart. Yes, and I want that heart back.
I get to work for my daughter's foundation and volunteer, and she still has me on assignment. That is what keeps my heart pure and lovely before the Lord.